All right. Yes, definitely afternoon. Secretary General this morning spoke at an ad hoc committee of the General Assembly dealing with the voluntary contributions to the UN Relief and Works Agency for Palestine, otherwise known as UNRWA. He warned that in the last 10 years, the needs of Palestine refugees have increased while funds have stagnated. The Secretary General is asking member states for two steps to end the regular underfunding of the Relief and Works Agency. First, he appealed to the potential donors to make pledges today that will bridge the gap between the mandate of UNRWA and the budget needed to ensure vital services for Palestine refugees until the end of the year, to bring UNRWA's current shortfall down to zero. Second, he said we must put the agency on a durable financial footing that requires a long-term plan to stabilize the financing of UNRWA and reach sufficient, predictable, and sustainable funding. Just as a programming note, Philippe Lazzarini, the Commissioner General of UNRWA, will be our guest, or not our guest, but he will be here at 1:30 p.m. tomorrow at the end of the pledging conference. So please do come, even if it's Friday afternoon. Our Deputy Secretary General, Amina Mohammed, is in Kigali, Rwanda today, where she's attending the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting. She delivered remarks at the event focusing on sustainable development and on climate. She also spoke at the Violence Against Women and Girls side event with the First Lady of Rwanda and Camilla, the Duchess of Cornwall. The Deputy Secretary General also had a meeting with the Prime Minister of Cameroon, Joseph Ngute, and tonight she's scheduled to meet with Patricia Scotland, the Secretary General of Commonwealth. She will also attend the official welcoming reception hosted by the President of Rwanda, Paul Kagame. Tomorrow, she will continue to attend the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting and will also meet with several participating leaders. On Afghanistan, I will not repeat what Martin Griffiths and our colleague Ramiz Al-Akbarov just briefed the Security Council with, but I'll just add that our colleagues are telling us that priority needs include emergency shelter and non-shelter food items, food assistance, health and water and sanitation, as well as hygiene support. The UN Refugee Agency has dispatched tents, blankets, plastic sheeting, and kitchen sets, among other items, to cover the needs of about 4,000 people. The World Food Programme has confirmed in-kind food stocks to about 14,000 people in the hardest-hit Paktika province. And UNICEF has also pre-positioned non-food items in Paktika and Khost provinces and is supporting medical evacuations from Urgun district to Jian district in Paktika. The UN Population Fund, for its part, has confirmed the capacity to provide dignity kits and support to health facilities in the impacted area. In addition, 7 teams from the International Organization for Migrations are now on the ground in Paktika and Khost for assessments. For its part, the World Health Organization is providing 10 tons of medical supplies, sufficient for about 5,400 surgeries, as well as medical treatment covering 36,000 people for 3 months. The UN Development Programme, as part of the overall UN response, has launched a series of emergency response initiatives to support communities impacted by the earthquake. The UNDP and its partners are refocusing their ongoing cash for work activities to support the reconstruction of damaged houses, restoring operations of the micro businesses critical to the local economy, and addressing other basic human needs. Today, our humanitarian colleagues on the ground coordinated the deployment of assessment teams to Khost and Paktika, as well as to Gardez in Paktia provinces. Local coordinations with the de facto authorities in Afghanistan is obviously ongoing. Colleagues also warning of the risk that the cholera outbreak are of particular concern in the southeastern part of the country, where cases of acute watery diarrhea were already rising prior to yesterday's earthquake. Preparations are underway to avoid an outbreak, including through oral vaccinations and hygiene responses activities. The humanitarian coordinator for Afghanistan, Ramiz Al-Akbarov, is expected to lead a team to the affected areas in the coming days to support our coordination efforts. Turning to Libya, the special advisor for Libya, Stephanie Williams, announced today that the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Aguila Saleh, and the President of the High State Council, Khaled al-Mishri, have agreed to a meeting under UN auspices on the 28th and 29th of June at the UN offices in Geneva. That meeting will be to discuss the draft constitutional framework for elections in light of the outcome of the consultations of the Joint Committee last week. Ms. Williams continued intensive engagement with national stakeholders and members of the international community to ensure that coordination is in place to hold elections at the earliest possible date based on consensual constitutional and legal basis. We urge again all relevant Libyan actors to embrace the compromise, to maintain calm on the ground, and to refrain from using incendiary rhetoric or engaging in provocative actions that may undermine the stability and the fragility of the situation on the ground. From Ukraine, we are being told by our humanitarian friends that they are raising the alarm about the civilian impact of intense hostilities in the Donbass region, which has left a significant number of civilians killed and injured over the last 48 hours, according to our partners on the ground. As I mentioned on Monday, June 20th, we managed to deliver vital assistance to some 25,000 people in Slovyansk, some 10 kilometers away from the front line in the territory under control of the Ukrainian government. Just one day later, the mayor of the city called on people to evacuate after hours of intense shelling. Our UN colleagues who went there the day before mentioned the harsh living conditions that people who had stayed in the city are faced with: no water, high food prices, and endless hours hiding from hostilities. On the other side of the front lines, our humanitarian colleagues are telling us that densely populated areas of the cities of Donetsk and Makivka have been under heavy bombardment for the last 48 hours, reportedly leaving many civilians dead. As you know, insecurity makes it challenging for us to verify the exact impact on the situation. In non-government controlled areas of Donetsk Oblast, water is extremely limited, and across government-controlled areas in the oblast, more than 350,000 users, including health centers, have not had electricity for many weeks. The humanitarian coordinator for Ukraine, Osnat Lubrani, has called again on the parties to the conflict to facilitate safe and unimpeded humanitarian access to all regions of the country. She stressed that despite engagement to negotiate access, humanitarians have been prevented from reaching critical areas, including in Mariupol, Kherson, and most recently in Severodonetsk. We will continue trying to reach those people who need our help the most. And ahead of the G7 ministerial meeting tomorrow in Berlin on global food security, UNICEF appealed today for $1.2 billion to meet urgent needs of 8 million children at risk of death from severe wasting. The Children's Agency said since the start of the year, the escalating global food crisis has forced an additional 260,000 children, one for every 60 seconds, to suffer from severe wasting in 15 countries bearing the brunt of the crisis, and that includes the Horn of Africa and the Central Sahel. UNICEF will use the funds to deliver nutrition services, including prevention programs to protect maternal and child nutrition among pregnant women and young children, early detection of treatment programs for children with severe wasting, and the procurement and distribution of ready-to-use therapeutic foods. And I also did not want to fail mentioning that the Secretary General will address that meeting tomorrow via pre-recorded video message. We will share under embargo the text and the video of that. We have an update from the Democratic Republic of the Congo, where humanitarian colleagues say that violence in the past 3 months have displaced at least 158,000 people in eastern Rutshuru and Nyiragongo territories. Most of the people displaced are women and children. Several villages in Rutshuru have been emptied of their inhabitants. Displaced people are sheltering in churches, schools, and other makeshift areas, with several thousands having taken in by host families. Despite the access and funding constraints, humanitarian interventions by UN agencies and our partners continue in Rutshuru and Nyarongongo. Food has been distributed and health and water sanitation services made accessible. Humanitarians are currently working to step up aid distribution, but they say the crisis is compounding an already fragile humanitarian situation in North Kivu, as well as other eastern provinces such as Ituri and South Kivu. To date, humanitarian appeal for the DRC is only 20% funded. And a quick note from Sri Lanka, where the resident coordinator, Hannah Singer, and her team are continuing to provide support for the ongoing crisis in the country. The UN Development Program has launched an initiative that provides private sector partners the opportunity to contribute to the humanitarian needs and priorities plan, which calls for $47.2 million to provide life-saving assistance to nearly 2 million women, children, and men the worst affected by the economic crisis and whose livelihoods, food security, and access to health services are most at risk. And today is Peacebuilding Day. In his message for the day, the Secretary General said that building peace is the raison d'etre of the United Nations. He notes that for 16 years, the UN Peacebuilding Commission has helped forge sustainable peace around in many places in the world. It has cooperated with local actors, amplified the voices of women and youth. The Peacebuilding Fund, he says, has served as one of the most effective instruments to support conflict-affected population. At the same time, he warns that the war in Ukraine is shaking the international order and contributing to destabilization of economies in many developing countries. Full message online. Today is also Public Service Day, and that's what I do for you every day. You're very welcome. The Secretary General says that there is no higher calling than serving others. We honor the women and men around the world who proudly dedicate their ideas, innovation, energies to serving their communities and humankind. Added today, that is also International Widows Day, which is an extremely important issue. Tomorrow, I mentioned already the 1:30 briefing by Philippe Lazzarini, and my guest at the briefing tomorrow will be Robert Piper, who, as you will recall, was recently appointed to be the Secretary General's Special Advisor on Solutions to Internal Displacement. He will speak on the launch of the Secretary General's Action Plan on Internal Displacement. And after a long dry spell, very happy to report two more budget contributors, and they are the Central African Republic and Tajikistan. And we say thank you to both of them. Edith, welcome back.
Thank you very much, Steph. A question and two follow-ups. Does the Secretary General have any comment on Aung San Suu Kyi being placed in solitary confinement by Myanmar's military rulers?
Well, I can tell you, I think we're very concerned about these latest developments, which goes against everything we've been calling for, which was her release and the release of the president and all of the other political prisoners, and we are concerned for her state.
Also, on UNRWA, are we going to get a total today of how much was pledged and some kind of a statement, or do we have to wait for Mr. Lazzarini tomorrow?
We hope you do not have to wait till tomorrow, so you can file your stories today. We will ask our friends at UNRWA.
And thirdly, is there any update on efforts by the Secretary General to put together this Ukraine-Russia package to get food delivered?
The update is that the phone lines are continuing to hum. The discussions are ongoing. And that's what I can share with you at this time. Benno.
Then I have a follow-up to this. When did the SG speak last to the president or the foreign minister of Turkey?
He spoke to President Erdogan 2 or 3 days ago. Fahan will send me a WhatsApp message with the exact date, but it was this week.
And then can you tell us when the SG will travel next and where to?
I think it will be no surprise that he will be traveling to attend the Lisbon Oceans Conference, and we will share further travel. I expect an official note on his upcoming travel to attend two critical meetings, which one in Lisbon and the other one in the Caribbean. But I have no update for you on the travel to the region that you're all curious about.
Can you remind me when Lisbon is?
Lisbon, officially starts on Monday.
Okay. May I have one follow-up on Ukraine?
You may?
You said there's a significant number of killed and injured civilians in the Donbas. Can you be more specific about that? What significant number means? Is it dozens? Is it hundreds?
That's a good question. I need to get clarity on that. Mr. Guterres and Mr. Erdogan spoke on Monday afternoon. Madame, and then we'll go to you, Fatih.
You said UN emergency aid is being sent to people who got affected by earthquake, and you are getting help from the Taliban. Do you think the Taliban are capable or can be trusted to just help you deliver that aid?
Well, I didn't say we're getting help from the Taliban. I said we are coordinating with the de facto authorities. It's not a question of whether people can be trusted or what. The issue is that they have the responsibility as the de facto authorities to help people. And we are working and coordinating with them. We are sending people to the area. The acting special representative will be going in the next few days. And we will continue to coordinate with them, and also ensuring that aid gets to the people who need it.
Security Council meeting on situation in Afghanistan is about to be done or done already. So many members talked about economic problems and talked about how international community must aid Afghan people. Is something that UN is working on to get more money or aid into Afghanistan? Do we know anything about it? Is there any plan in place?
Well, we continue to ensure that the international community does not hold the people of Afghanistan. Let me put it this way. We're continuing to work with the international community to ensure that the people of Afghanistan, the men, the women, the boys, and the girls of Afghanistan get the humanitarian aid they deserve and that they need. We're also obviously concerned with the overall economic situation, which has a detrimental impact on the civilians. And we continue in all our discussions with the de facto authorities to push them to roll back these disastrous regulations that prevent women and girls from getting the education they are entitled to as a human right, basically.
Some members at the Security Council said that the Taliban are still associating with the terrorist groups like Al-Qaeda. Does the UN has any knowledge of this association? And if yes, did UN extended the exemption sanction on traveling for 13 members of the Taliban? And I was gonna ask, like, do you think the negotiation with the Taliban is gonna go anywhere? According to Secretary General report on the Taliban, Taliban themselves have so many internal problems. They are not going to have any plans to get a government with all people from every ethnicity in it. If they have so many problems within their own group, how is this exemption of sanction going to help international community?
I think these are important questions. There are two things we have to separate out. The issue of sanctions, exemptions from sanctions, non-exemption, that's an issue that's within the authority of the Security Council. In terms of issues relating to terrorism and Al-Qaeda, I think these are some of the issues the independent experts from the Sanctions Committee look at. It's not something that our political mission has the investigatory authority on. As for the internal political dimension of the Taliban, that's a question best left for analysts. Obviously, we work, whether in any place where we work with the authorities that are in place, and we can only do that. We have no choice. So we deal with the de facto authorities at every level, at the national level, the local and the provincial level, in the best way that we can, without bending on our principles, especially when it comes to the rights of women and girls. Sorry, yes, go ahead, Fatih.
Thank you, Steph, and happy Public Service Day to you and your colleagues.
Thank you.
I have a question about Libya. Stephanie Williams have been undertaking many initiatives and meetings and sub-meetings and committees. While it is very obvious to any observer that the domestic powers, the political powers on the theaters, have no interest in carrying the election, and we have seen that from last year. What is new with this new round that's taking place in Geneva, and why did it not stay in the region? Why do you have to go to Europe? They had Cairo.
Frankly, it's not in the habit of Ms. Williams or any of our leaders of political missions to just throw our arms up in the air and just give up. The responsibility for the future of Libya, for the well-being of the Libyan people, is in the hands of Libyan leaders, and that has been our message. And our message has been that they need to take into account the needs of their people, of the more than 8 million people who took the time and the effort to register to vote so they can express themselves in democratic elections. We will keep trying different formats, different locations, but at the end of the day, the Libyan parties will have to agree themselves. I mean, they've met in Cairo. They're meeting in Switzerland. We'll see whatever place will lead to an agreement, we will go to. But it is clear that it's a little more challenging to have a meeting in situ when there is such clear divisions between leaders in different parts of the country. It is logistically and diplomatically easier for them to meet outside of the country. And so we're trying something else.
Thank you. Just a little correction. The registered voters in Libya are 2.8, not 8 million.
Sorry, thank you. Okay, on that correction, Abdelhamid, I think you have a question.
In fact, I have two. 14 of the suspects of those who murdered Nizar Banat last year was released by the Palestinian Authority 2 days ago. Do you have any comment on that? Is the Secretary General aware of this development?
I am not aware. So let me look into it, and I will get back to you. Okay.
And my second
Yes,
question.
Sir. Yeah, go ahead.
The settlement of Ariel has a university. And now the Israelis have accredited the university as part of the Israeli university system. That means actually annexing the settlement of Ariel and considering it part of the Israeli system. Do you have also any comment on that?
Our position on the issue of settlements and the legality of settlements remains unchanged from having been spoken out many a times. Okay, Ms. Kubiak.